Hey guys, it's the Awkward Professor again here with another quick art tip. So today we're going to do a little linoleum block print. And we got some really cool carving tools and we got some block printing ink. So by the time we're done, hopefully you have something you can take home and show your mom. See, Mom? Look what I made! Don't you love it? And if not, well, maybe it's a good dog biscuit. If not, hopefully you learned something. Hey guys, we're going to get into the design section of our linoleum block print. Number one thing is you got to know what size your linoleum block is. Now we use a 4x6 size block, and so I'm basically going to take that and I've created a piece of tracing paper. I've also created a design that is 4x6, and the reason I created this piece of tracing paper is so that I can take my design that I've basically just drawn and I'm going to trace it. And the reason we do this is a lot of young artists struggle with trying to transfer this image onto their block. So what I'm going to do is just easily trace over what I've kind of started. Now once we have it onto our tracing paper, what we want to do is take our linoleum block here and we set that down. Now with our tracing paper, we flip this over, okay? And basically what we're doing is we're just going to lay it on top and we're just going to shade over it real quick. And this allows us to create a basic image. And the pencil I'm using is a 2B. Now if you don't know anything about pencils, a 2B is a softer lead. And the idea with the softer lead is that the graphite in your lead will come off a lot easier. So when you're using tracing paper, if you use a lighter lead or a softer lead, that will help when you are transferring an image over. So there we go, we have our basic image transferred over. Next thing I need to do is go in here and just trace it, so if I do set this down for some period of time, my image will still be on here. I get a lot of students who wash their image off or try and erase it, and then they get feeling like they're not having any success. So I typically encourage my students to use a permanent marker to put this image on after they've traced it, only because that will give them success in not losing their image. So that is one point that we try and stress in my class. Simple image here, just put onto our linoleum block print. Now we're going to move into our carving portion of this project. Now with our linoleum block, the type of material we're using is a little bit more difficult to use. It's a little bit harder, firmer, and it's unlike some of this other material that you get that's real easy to carve into. This material is a little bit more of a struggle to get your lines where you want them and things like that, only because of the type of material it is. So we have a couple of things that we use to help us out. One is this tool here. It's just a board with a board that faces down and a board that faces up. And the idea is that it slides up against your desk so that your project will sit in there. And the reason they do that is because when we carve with the material, you have to hold the material down. So when we are carving, we don't want to carve towards ourselves. And we find that a lot of students do this. They hold that end of the material and they carve towards themselves and they'll end up with a scar. So you don't want to have any accidents where your students are cutting themselves or yourself. So basically what I would do is recommend trying to find something like this, or get a piece of wood where you can put two small boards on each side and kind of go from there. Now when carving this material, find a carving tool that's sharp, one that you like and works well for you. One other thing that I'm trying today is to warm this up. Now you can try using a hair dryer at home. That's a basic thing that creates a little bit of heat that won't burn anything. Another thing that I'm using is a hot griddle or a grill thing, just out of a kitchen. Sometimes you can use. Typically, I want to go and get your mother's stuff. She might get a little irritated, but you can pick these up at Walmart or something for fairly low price. So what we want to do is make sure that we get something, and this just warms it up a little bit, make it a little bit easier for us to carve into. So I'm just going to let that sit for a minute, and then we'll get back to carving. Now hopefully by heating that up, it makes it a little bit softer and easier to carve into. So I'm going to use my carving tool, and I'm just going to kind of put some pressure forward. And again, you see how my fingers are here? I don't want to carve towards my fingers. Okay? So I will not put my fingers up here and carve towards them. I will turn my block if I need to carve different directions. And hopefully on the curves we can get something figured out. Now I heated this, and I find that by heating it, the linoleum does carve a little bit softer, but it also makes some of it crumble a little bit. And that's not a big deal in this material or what it is that I'm making. We're just going to carve this out. Again, want to watch not to carve towards ourselves. Now, the more detail and stuff that you have, you'll find that it is a little bit harder to do. On a curved object like this, we want to turn our material as we bring our object out. And that is difficult to always stop and make sure you're not carving towards yourself. This material seems to be coming apart fairly easy. Hey guys, now we're into our printing process of our project. So a couple of things that we have here. We have our roller here, we have a frosting knife to help us get the ink out, we have a plate, and we have a piece of paper that we're going to put our print onto from our plate. We also have up here is a piece of plexiglass. And the reason I have this in here is to show you that you might need something like this in order to spread your ink out on. The table that I have has a nice surface on it, which allows me to use that for our spreading of our ink. But typically what we would do is spread it on here, and then we would roll it out on this. That way you don't have to worry about cleanup on maybe a nice table or anything like that. So, but we're going to use our table, and I'll put this over here to the side. So, first thing we have to do is take our frosting knife, and we're going to take just a little bit of ink. We don't need a lot, just a little, and we're going to spread that onto our inking surface. Okay. One of the biggest issues that young students do is they think that they have to put the ink on this block. You don't have to put the ink on the block. That just fills in these crevices, and then you have more issues. So I'm going to take my roller here, and I'm going to just spread that out a little bit. And I want to make sure I get a nice amount of ink here so that I can nicely spread that out. And if you hear that noise, you want the ink to start making that noise. It means that it's spread out and it's not too thick. One of the big issues you have is people will put that ink on real thick. Now, I want to pick this up because it's curved a little bit. Remember, I got this out of a giant roll of linoleum. So it has that natural curve to it because that's how it's stored. So I'm just going to try to ink it. And maybe I'll move it over here a little bit. We want to spread that ink out nicely and make sure that we have enough ink on all portions of your plate. If you don't have enough ink, when you go to pull your print, you'll have a couple of issues. Probably could use a little bit more ink, but I think we'll go with that. So I'm going to set my ink thing down, and then I am going to grab my piece of paper here, and I'm just going to hold my fingers on it here, and I'm going to let it fall on top of my plate. And then I'm going to put my finger right where the plate is, pull this hand up, and then I'm going to start to rub the top of the plate through the paper. And what I'm doing is pressing the paper down into the ink. And that's how we want to transfer our ink over onto our paper. Okay, now that I think I've got that rubbed in there pretty good, I'm just going to pick the corner of this up and pull that off, and I have a print. Now looking at this print, I can tell you probably could have used a little bit more ink, but for our first print, not too bad. So that's kind of the basics of this project. I'm going to pull one more print using a former student's project, which it turned out to be really nice. What I like about this one is that we used an animal, and on that animal we used textures and patterns to help make this image really pop out, and you can see that more when we pull that print. So we're going to take our ink here, we're just going to spread it out like we did previously. I want to make sure I added a little bit more ink on this one. And the material that was used with this one is that softer material, and it really makes it nice for carving out more of those details. If I was going to do a project, I would look to try and get that soft cut or a different material than the big roll of linoleum. So I don't want to get too much, but nicely spread that. And then I'm going to move it over away from that ink. And we're going to take our paper again, and we just hold that above it, and we let it fall. Then we take and put our finger on it, and then we slowly work our way out. If you have too much ink on this, you will start to smear it, and we don't want that to happen. So we're just slowly spreading our hand out on top of that. Once you think you've had enough pressure on that, I'm just going to pick that up and take a look at our print. And there you go. There's a nice print. You can see that snake in there, the different patterns and textures in that background. This is a really nice print and a really nice project by a young artist. So this is what we're aiming for. Next thing that we're going to do is we're going to show you how to sign the artwork. Here we are now, and we're working on signing our artwork. Now on this image, I gave you the basic general concept here. So we have our artwork here, and underneath, and we give ourselves a little bit of a space, we have the title on the left. In the middle, we have the series number. So this is a 1 of 1. And then we have the artist signature. Now, for my class, I require my students to have a title. I also have them do a series of 3. So instead of 1 of 3, this could be 1 of 3, 2 of 3, or 3 of 3. And then you have your artist signature. Now, the biggest thing that young artists do or don't do is try and make sure that this stays within the outside constraints of our image here. We want to stay in line there. I get a lot of students who will just sign their name wherever. And we also want to make sure that we keep a basic distance away from the bottom, and then that our lettering stays about the same also. So we kind of want to stay in a good justification with our signing and our artwork so that it looks more professional. So when you do put a mat around it or a frame, it looks really nice. Now, when we are working with multiple ones, for example, the image I created earlier, now I would take a look at these and I would see which one is a nicer print. So, for example, my title, I'm going to label it Robot. This one I think is a nicer print than this one. You can kind of see it's like the old snow from your old televisions that you used to get. So we have Robot here. I'm going to name this one Robot also because it's the same image. So the title is the same. And then I can put in the middle my series number. So I made 2 prints out of this. So this one, because I believe it's a nicer print, is 1 of 2. And this one is 2 of 2. Because it's not as nice as this one. So if I'm selling it to a customer, this one would be worth more money than this one. And then this one here, artist signature. Again, we want to try and stay outside of that, and we're trying to stay within our justification that we set up. So there we go. We have 2 images. Robot's the title. This is series. It has 2 prints in it, which is your bottom number. This is the first print or the better print, which is 1 of 2. This one is the second best print, which is 2 of 2, and then your artist signature. So I hope that kind of explains how you're supposed to sign your artwork when we're working with prints.
Hey guys, it's the Awkward Professor here again with another quick art tip. Oh, I get so nervous when I get in front of the camera, man. But anyways, we're gonna do a linoleum block print today, and then we're gonna use some really cool carving tools, sharp points, and then we have some ink. Hopefully we don't get too messy. Anyways, when we're done, hopefully we have something we can take home and show Mom. If not, I guess we just feed it to the dog. Okay, see you in a little bit. Hang in there, stay tuned. Bye! Oh, hey guys, it's the Awkward Professor here with a